Hello everybody. My name is Carrie Gregory. I'm 20 years old, and I want to talk about something special today, and that is my autism. Yeah, I have you would call it a disability, some would, and some would call it a blessing. Which, before I get into what my autism makes me do, some of the things it makes me do, which it makes me do this one particular thing I really want to talk about with the public, get it out there. But I'll give you a brief description of autism. Autism is kind of a learning and communication disorder where you'll notice that some kids don't make eye contact, some kids don't have friends, interact with peers their age all that well, things like that. And there's a wide range of spectrum. You could be on the lowest end where you can't talk or do nothing for yourself, or you could be on the highest end where you're really intelligent, can pretty much almost be the norm of what kind of people without excuse me, without autism are, which I'm probably, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, somewhere kind of closer to the normal side, but towards the middle. But anyway, what I want to talk to you today about, which before I say anything about this, I just want to give you a little bit of a brief backstory. My parents found out that I was autistic when I was a baby, because when I was a baby, I'd arch my back. I didn't like to be held or cuddled or anything like that. Usually that's a sign with autism. So we found out when I was pretty much a baby, or at least 1 years old, which my mum got intervention young, or else I probably wouldn't be on here today talking, because it was kind of worse in me than it is with my brother, which my brother has it too. But I was also on medication for a good majority of my life, probably between when they first found out and when I turned 14, which this obsession started while I was on medication and while I was going to therapies and stuff like that. So, to get into my obsession, because autistic people also have obsessions or repetitive things or certain subjects they're pretty smart at, which I do too. And as you may probably know, these are maps. My obsession is roads and stuff. But I know that a lot of you people are going to be thinking, oh, well, you're probably good with road signs. My kid has that's good with road signs or the names of highways and stuff like that. Well, I am good at that, but I kind of take my obsession to the extreme because I lack human friends and whatnot. I just was never good with making friends growing up. But because I lack human friends and whatnot, I give my highways personas, make them human, which I will give you about 4 examples. I'm going to talk about the first one that I really made human real briefly, which this is it. This is I-79. This was a picture taken of me when I was 9 years old, but my obsession really started in 2006 when I was about 7 when I first met I-79, him. I call I I have genders for my highways too, but I'm going to talk about four main highways to sum it up as quick as possible and to give you a quick review. So, four of the highways that I'm obsessed with, which there's more, is I-77, which is a boy, a male. If he was a person, he'd be a male. I-64, which is a female, and if she was a person, she'd be a woman, because she's an adult. They're all four adults. None of them are kids. None of them are close to my age either. They're like 50, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I-77 is gonna be 64 years old, and his wife, which they're married to, I-64 is gonna be 57. Then there's Penna, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, or Interstate 76, which is 77 going on 78. He's a male. And then there's his wife, which he pretty much just kind of married because she just kind of got employed with him, which is a disclaimer, I'll explain that after a bit here, to him I-95, which is a female. So to start out with I-77 and 64, if I were to describe them, they live in Charleston, West Virginia. If I were to explain it, even though they're an interstate highway, I-77 goes from Ohio down to South Carolina, and 64 starts in Virginia to Missouri. But they technically, in my opinion, if they were people, they'd live in Charleston, West Virginia. Okay? And one of the obsessions, which I'm not gonna infringe copywriting about this, they kind of live in a hotel in Cross Lanes. They own it. That's their house. I'm not gonna disclose the location due to I don't need any more accusations while I'm trying to explain for people to understand. But they also, because I-77 and 64 are technically the West Virginia Turnpike, they work at the West Virginia Turnpike. Okay? So that's their occupation and a little bit about them. How I would describe I-64, she was a person, which to you people she's not, but to me she is. How I would describe her is she's the southern kind of, I wouldn't say girly girl, but she has that tinge to her. She's the southern feisty y'all and yeah and things like that. That's how she talks. And then I-77 is kind of like me. He's kind of like a northern highway, except he's stubborn. And he's kind of like a strict, I wouldn't say old man, even though he's 63 going on 64 years old. But he's kind of this, I don't like foul language like swearing and things like that, is how I would describe him. Okay, so now that I gave you a brief description of how I interpret those two, let me show you Penna and I-95 because I've been accused of some things and I want to clarify this to any so-called company, you know who you are, who watches this. Penna Turnpike, I-76, the Pennsylvania Turnpike. He is America's first superhighway, and he, because Penna, which I call him Penna, is a he. He is going to be 78 years old in October this year. He has 11 kids. His wife, I-95, who is 38, going to be 39 in November, is currently pregnant with his 12th child. And Penna, how I would describe Penna, he's kind of this goofy old man set in his 1940s ways and kind of has this annoying laugh that goes, pike, 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 pike. It's real annoying. um, and then his wife, I-95. She's a businesswoman. I would consider her from Philadelphia. Even though, as you may know, I-95 goes from Maine to Florida, but I-95 is from Philadelphia. She's from Philadelphia. She's this businesswoman, had a business occupation, and now she's a highway with, if you heard about it, the I-95 Pennsylvania Turnpike connector. So now she's a highway for Penna, so she works for Penna as a highway, not portraying her making anybody up as a person, but she's a highway for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. And, considering you're the Pennsylvania Turnpike yourself and the Pennsylvania Turnpike's wife, why wouldn't you, if to normal so-called people, why wouldn't you work for that transportation agency or whatever as a highway or whatever? But anyway, that's kind of how I would describe them as people, okay? And again, as I said, my highways kind of live in hotels for their housing and whatnot, which I keep these room keys as a sentimental thing. It's nothing that deals with the highway, just if you want to know. Which also, I want to disclose to anybody who uses social media, which the main platform I'm going to talk about is Facebook. I have fake Facebook accounts for all my highways. They are not trying to portray people on Facebook or any real person's occupation. They are portraying how I would see them if normal people could see that highways, that my autism kind of makes me give out a highways can talk personality. Which here's an example of my friend I-64's profile, which as an occupation it has her as highway at West Virginia Turnpike. It doesn't have her as government assistant or customer service or a real job or anything like that. Being a highway is a real job, quote unquote, but doesn't have her as anything like that, and that's her profile. So that's basically it. That's kind of how I wanted to explain to the world about my obsession, which was technically a gift from having autism. Having autism and having this ability to talk to highways and stuff, and like obsess about them too. Like I can name tons of roads and I'm good with directions and stuff too. But to have this obsession where I can make them into people just makes me feel good and I enjoy it. Which also, as a disclaimer, I know you're going to say, well, you're 20 years old, you're going to drive, aren't you going to wreck talking to these highways? I can't drive. I don't have my license. Why? I'm wearing glasses. My vision ain't all that great. I'm not totally blind. I can still see, but my vision is either at the point where I'll either have a restriction or I won't be able to drive at all. So don't worry, there are no accidents on any highway caused by me. No highway was hurt in the making of this filming. But anyway, I wanted to explain that, and also as a quick fun fact, real quick. If anybody is going to suggest that I get sexual or in a relationship or something like that with a highway, I do not get sexual. I don't have sex with them, but I do form like a high school, them high school puppy love relationships with some highways, like Frank. He's kind of the love of my life. I wish he was a person. He'd be a great person in my opinion. We'd be a perfect match. I'd love to marry him if he was a person. But anyway, that's how I interpret the world. I'm not out to copy anybody. I'm not out to threaten anybody in any way. But that's how I see my highways in the world. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comment. If you want me to make another video explaining more, I absolutely will. So like, subscribe, and comment nice, positive things down below. And thanks for watching. Peace out.